The UConn women are only going to go as far as the support Paige Bueckers gets this season. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, as always, we ask you to take a quick moment to do us a small favor and subscribe on YouTube. If you're enjoying the content, please take a second to also follow wherever you listen to your audio version. So if you're a subscriber on YouTube and you don't follow on Apple or Spotify, please do me that little double favor if that's okay, because it really helps the show grow. I genuinely appreciate your support. And now you're not only just helping me, you're helping us continue our efforts to generate more revenue for UConn NIL, their initiatives, and also something even I'm more excited about, no disrespect to the NIL aspect, but I'm donating 10% of all revenue to the Husky Ticket Project as well. I'm proud to partner with them to help send kids to games and make a real difference. They've done a great job in my hometown of Meriden, Connecticut, and I'd love to continue to give back. So thank you for being a part of this journey with me and for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay. This UConn women's basketball team is loaded with talent, with stars, most notably the biggest star in college basketball, Paige Bueckers, and the biggest coach in college basketball in Geno Auriemma. But I can't help but wonder that if this team will only go so far as the others that we're going to talk about in the first segment will take them. Paige Bueckers is undeniably, if not the best college player of this season, especially the best returning player. But as you witnessed last year, between the injuries and essentially just not having enough fresh bodies to come in and subsidize anything that she was doing, it kind of leads to sloppy play. You get frustrated, and they just literally ran out of gas against Iowa in the Final Four. So let's dive into this roster, and starting with some thoughts on, as we've talked about in the past, my biggest thing is health. The health of this team, most notably, and she's not the only one, but I'm going to circle this one player, and I think everyone knows who I'm going to talk about. AZ Fudd and her ability to complement Paige as a secondary scorer is going to be huge for this UConn women's team and their aspirations to win a 12th national title. But she's not the only one. In fact, we've identified 6 other players, some returning, some transfer, some freshmen. Actually, I think it might be 7. But UConn actually has some of the best talent they've had in a very long time. Now, one can argue that they've always had talent, for sure. Let's just say healthy talent. Let's start with Caroline Ducharme. She's a versatile guard forward and is expected to be obviously a key contributor if she stays healthy. She contributes on both ends of the floor. She's a good offensive player, good defensive player, solid scoring ability, can defend multiple positions. She has great positional versatility. She's a veteran. She helps stabilize the team. She's had injury setbacks. Obviously, Caroline's return is highly anticipated. So that's another one. Not only with AZ, but also with Caroline. Their health and their ability to stretch the floor with shooting. Both of them are very good shooters. Both of them can create off the dribble, which I think will be essential to take pressure off Paige and allow her to just attack. Ashlyn Shade, as a freshman, Ashlyn brought a dynamic presence to the backcourt. She's a tenacious defensive player, hustle player. She's a guard who plays with a ton of energy. Ashlyn's defensive prowess will likely make her an immediate asset that she doesn't need to be the primary, secondary, or third scorer on this team. But any offense that we get from Ashlyn Shade this year, as I've seen that she's improved her three-point shooting, is going to elevate UConn from good to great to potentially elite. She's unafraid to drive to the basket, which I love. And I feel like she's going to add another element to her game with consistent three-point shooting. Can't forget KK Arnold, another talented, now sophomore, who is likely to make a splash again this season. She is going to have increased ball handling ability, ball handling duties. Although I do expect through Emily Adams and her contributions last Friday and continuing through the season, talking about Paige being on the ball more, I definitely see KK running the show, in particular when we go through the schedule and some of the games early on, which aren't too challenging from a perspective of giving Paige some more time and really kind of getting her ready for the rough parts of the season. So I think with Geno's offensive system, he's going to offer a lot of flexibility and experiment with different guards on the ball, different guard rotations. But I think KK's speed is such an asset. She's such a good shooter. She is just an absolute spark plug. And I just feel like for her to take that next step, she could end up being what we want AZ to be, or what she's been in the past, and what we want her to return to be. So I think KK's got that type of ability, and she could play a huge role in the future of UConn's success for that 12th national championship. But what about the freshmen? Ali Zabal, Sarah Strong, and Morgan Shelley. It's an embarrassment of riches. One of my favorite phrases. They all bring different skill sets, but if you go through kind of their background, like Ali comes in she averaged almost 28 points a game in high school, almost 9 rebounds, 3 assists, almost 2 steals a game. She's a scoring machine. Will that be unleashed? Will Geno use her in different ways? Will she be kind of off the ball in motion, flaring out for threes because she's a great shooter? But she's also an incredible rebounder. So it's not just where you're going to have her on the perimeter. So I feel like she has the inside-outside game. Obviously, I know Geno's not afraid to mix that up. He's had a slew of women who have come through in that same mold where they have the ability to shoot but also get to the basket. She just has an all-around skill set that, is pretty incredible to add to a team that already has a bunch of talent. And then, I don't know, you add the number 1 recruit in the country, Sarah Strong, who Geno has said as time has gone on, she has become less complacent. She made some comments about stores not really having a lot to do, and it's been an adjustment period for her. She's coming from North Carolina. Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina isn't exactly New York City, so not really sure the issue there. But that's to here nor there. That's people have their own thoughts. Because where she's from, I know it well. It's not exactly a hotbed of activity. But back to her actual playing, she averaged, monstrous numbers in high school. 21.7, 17 rebounds. It was like 16.9 and 5 assists per game. Her rebounding alone is going to take a lot of pressure off of Jana, off of Paige, because potentially we're going to get some extra possessions. I think she's a prolific offensive rebounder. She's an elite physical elite physical presence and athleticism. She has incredible work ethic. I just think she just has an all-around skill set. And think about that with Ali, with Sarah, with these kind of all-around players, because they're not just going to be here for 1 year. This team is set up for very well for the future. But this year, I think they're going to make some big-time contributions. And then there's Morgan, who really rounds out this trio, averaged 15 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Do you see a trend? Outside of Ali averaging almost 30 a game, all these guys are capable of averaging over 20 points a game, minimum 7 rebounds, and all of them average at least 3 assists. Unselfish, good defensive presence. Morgan averaged 3 steals a game in high school. She has incredible defensive instincts. I just think she's going to be a disruptive force, giving people some time I think hopefully with these three, they will get the opportunity to play, but also they're not forced into action because of injury. That's something that last year's freshmen we mentioned earlier were unfortunately they had to do. So when we return, let's pivot a little bit. Geno went to the WNBA Finals to watch Fee and Stewie for the Liberty and the Lynx, respectively. I want to talk about my thoughts on that and some win-loss predictions for the season coming up after this. Hey, UConn fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we pooled over $10,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With Roy, the app, you can direct your support to athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to specific players you choose. Unlike collectives, like Store Central, Bleeding Blue for Good, you know exactly where your support is going. And even you receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. So what's the best part? It's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, I'm supporting TJ Sheffield of our UConn Huskies. He had an amazing game 2 weeks ago on a bye week this week, but got to recognize the eight catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown. I just pitched in $100, and I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. So let's show TJ some love and keep connecting to our school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Please don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. With 2 tickets to a game in November, just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Roy? Any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscription fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy _return on your for info. Support the players, change the game. And we're back on Locked On UConn. Just going over some of the major contributors that need to be a part of this UConn women's chemistry and success other than Paige Beckers. Because we've chronicled, we had whole shows on her. We've had shows on Caitlin Chen, Geno Auriemma. We've had shows on recruiting and what they're getting next year, but we really haven't dove into the ramifications of if this team does not get the contributions that they need and it runs Paige down, it's going to be tough to win it all. I mean, it's already going to be tough. If we get all of the things that we want, if we get Sarah Strong dominating, if we get Geno Auriemma averaging, some people have asked for ridiculous numbers like 20 and 10 this year when she hasn't played basketball in 2 years, at least not at UConn. So some of these projections are a little, slow down a little bit, but these players, the women that are on this team, the pedigree is there. And I know that Geno Auriemma has high expectations and standards, and I have no doubt that they should meet those. But if they fall short, that's why you have strength in numbers. So if, let's say, Paige has a dominant year and AZ comes back, but she's on a pitch count, she's definitely going to have some load management as the year goes on. And you add someone like Jana, Caroline Ducharme comes back, then Caitlin Chen is taking a little bit of the workload of Paige off the bounce. Same with KK Arnold. Ashlyn Shade improves her three-point shooting. You got Ali Zabal off the bench who can absolutely stroke it, and she is a fantastic player all around. Morgan Shelley, also a freshman. So there's so much, and I didn't mention everybody. So if you can at me and tell me, how could you not mention such and such player? There's only a 25 to 30 minutes to do this show. So, but I also want to talk about something and kind of break from the team and talk about Geno. He went to the WNBA Finals. Some really great pictures from that event. If you have Twitter or you have Instagram or any of the socials that post on it, Stewie posted some stuff on her account. Emily Adams, our contributor from the Hartford Courant, will be with us every Friday during the season, barring any issues for her to make the show. She should be with us weekly. On her Twitter account, X account, she posted some really cool stuff. Reposted some things on Stewie and Geno's relationship. Even one video where he was talking about how Stewie was in the background going like this, trying to get Nafisa a technical during the WNBA second game. And I just love to see it. You can just tell that Geno has such a connection to these players. And as someone who is over 40 and has watched the majority of this rise, and remembers almost all of it, Geno to me has always cared. He's always been, wore his heart in his sleeve, fiery, all of that. But the one thing I'm starting to see, and I think this happens as you get older, because I know that it happens to me too, you start to kind of feel more empathy. You start to have the more proud of moments, whether it's your kids. I'm not a grandfather, but I'm sure grandkids for him. And I know that probably resonates with some of the fan base that is of a certain age, that you look at some of these players and they're not just people that come in your life for a couple of years and then they leave, and whether they win a title or not, you start to look at them as like the same way you would look at your daughters, or the same way you'd look at your granddaughters. And it has to give you a little more passion, and really there's more skin in the game. Like, you feel connected with them. And I think that's one of the best things about UConn basketball, both on the women's and men's side, is that, more so the women, because even though there's transfer portal and there's obviously more opportunity for women to go pro early, you just don't see it as much. And if there's data to suggest otherwise, please send it to me. But I think from a history perspective, over time, maybe more so now, less players leave early on the women's side. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's such a strong connection to the UConn women from a cultural perspective all around. And to see Geno at the WNBA Finals in Brooklyn, and also to see two of his former players have monster 2 games. They are just, Fee and Stewie are just fantastic WNBA players. Fee with 21-8 in her first game with an incredible Lynx win. They hit some crazy 3-pointer in overtime. Stewie with 18-9 for the Liberty in that loss. But then in game 2, Stewie gives you 21-8-5 in a classic game for her. Liberty win by 14 over the Lynx to tie the finals at 1, heading back to Minnesota. Fee was no slouch in the loss. That was 16-8. So on top of just the care he has, he's literally watching his work unfold in front of him on a different stage, on a global stage. And it's just great to see the relationship he has with his former players. I also think from a perspective of UConn, the coach supporting alumni on a big stage at this point in his career, at this age, really reflects on what the UConn program is: a family-oriented and a supportive environment. So it's no doubt that when you hear Ali Zabal call UConn her dream school, this has an impact. I think Geno is a great allure to go play. Now, again, I know there's other options now. It's not like it used to be where, Emily and I talked about this like 2 weeks ago, where there wasn't a huge alumni presence for schools other than UConn, Tennessee, LSU, Notre Dame, USC. But now there is, and it's starting to, come back. But UConn is always going to have kind of the largest support because of their history and their ability to win championships. And Geno's always been at the helm of that. So it's just really great to see his influence on the growth of women's basketball. And I hope he continues to coach even past this contract extension, because if he loves it and he is still healthy and capable, there's no better person to be at the helm of UConn women. And so I salute him, and I really, really appreciate all that he's done for the UConn women and the game of basketball. So we're going to come back and dive back into the schedule. First game is November 7th. And I'm really excited about kind of doing this segment, not because it's anything other than speculation, but predictions are always fun. Predictions sure to go wrong. Let's call it that. We'll be back coming up after this. What's up, NFL fans? You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started. By the way, since we're talking about the UConn women, they are plus 450 to win the title this year. Not a bad bet. $100 gets you 450 to win. So it's basically 4.5 to 1. So you can figure that out on your own. If you want to do a classic double like I did already, put the plus 450 on the women, plus 900 on the men. Do a little parlay. UConn basketball as a whole is the only school to ever do the daily double, if you will, otherwise known as the basketball capital of the world. Let's see if we can do it again for a unprecedented third time, as I'm predicting this year. Go to FanDuel.com to get your bets in. Okay, we're back on Locked On UConn. So far, we've talked about what the supporting cast needs to do to give Paige some love this season so that it's not all on her shoulders, and it shouldn't be. The UConn women have a robust team this year, feeling really strong about their chances of taking home a 12th national championship. But what I want to do right now is run down my kind of win-loss record for the team as they play this year. Let's take a look at the schedule. So they open up against BU on November 7th. And that's obviously a win. And honestly, all of these are, they really haven't showed, actually they have, the schedule is kind of pretty, it's been updated since the last time I checked. I'm going to give you, some highlights, some games, but BU's a win. We're basically going to run it down until we face a good team, and it happens pretty quickly. And guess what? I'll be at this game. So Boston College start off 1-0. Boston University start off 1-0 at home. Then we're playing South Florida also at home. That's a 4:30 game. I think that's going to be a little bit tougher competition than BU, with South Florida being in the American. But that should be a 2-0 start. And then we're going to head to play North Carolina. I don't know much about this North Carolina team, but I'm going to find out as I'll be covering that live on November 15th at the Greensboro Coliseum. Luckily for me, I live in Greensboro, so you will have a UConn presence outside of Emily and others, I'm sure, who cover the team from the Locked On universe here to discuss that. I think they're going to win that game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer than what people think, because North Carolina, they descend on the Greensboro Coliseum. It's a how do I explain this? It's a classic venue, and I'm sure most of you are well aware of its importance in the ACC and just kind of North Carolina basketball as a whole. So there will be a ton of Carolina blue there and fans, but also to see box office, right? Paige Bueckers is box office. UConn women's basketball is box office, and there's going to be 23,000 people at the Greensboro Coliseum screaming and hollering on November 15th. And hopefully I will be on Media Row to cover it all. Then we kind of get back into, these women don't play as many bye games or categorized as bye games as the men do. So, but they're playing Fairleigh Dickinson. That should be a win. Like the BU game, South Florida, Fairleigh Dickinson, Oregon State, even though they're in the WCC now, Holy Cross. These games, I think we're going to start off 2, 4, 6, 6-0, and then get to Louisville. That's a little more challenging. I think there's going to be some trouble there, but I think that's a close win. So we're at, let's see, where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-0 start. Then we travel to Notre Dame. This is our first kind of true road game of the season, and I think we may lose that game. I'm not just saying that to just because I just feel like whenever you go play on someone's campus, you have the statistics are they have a 50% more likelihood to, or I'm sorry, they typically start at about 70% higher chance to win a game at home versus on the road. Now, factor in better team, better talent, et cetera, better coaching, which UConn has all three. But just something about road games where you're playing on someone's campus. It's an old Big East foe in Notre Dame. I just think that one's going to be a tough one. We're going to get our first loss there. So we start off 7-1. Then we play Georgetown. I think that's a dub to go 8-1. Iowa State, I think that's another win at home, 9-1. Then we play a primetime against USC at home. I think we win that game against USC and Juju Watkins to start the season off at 9-1. I think we win against Providence on, looks like New Year's Day. Yep. Hello, 2 p.m. That'll be a fun 2025 opener. They're not going to lose any games in the Big East. It's just not going to happen. So let's just keep moving along. Providence is a win. Marquette, so that's 11-1. Villanova 12-1. Xavier 13-1. Georgetown 14-1. St. John's 15-1. Seton Hall 16. Villanova 17. Creighton 18. DePaul 19. Butler 20. Then you play at Tennessee. I think they win this game. I everything I said is still true, but I don't think Tennessee has the talent that Notre Dame does, and I could be wrong on that. I'm going to go back and check because I feel like Notre Dame is going to be a decent team this year. I know that they've brought in some pretty good talent. They're getting a great player back from a torn ACL last year. I don't know. I think that there's some good opportunity for Notre Dame. That's why I'm, like I said, I think it's just the fact that it's the first road game, no more, no less. So let's go back to where we were. A win at Tennessee gets us to, I believe, 19-1. And then I think we run the table till St. John's at 21-1. And I want the challenge. I think South Carolina is beatable this year, but at home, which I would love to see if I can get to that game. It's not that far for me. At South Carolina, I think we lose that game. I think we'll be 21-2. Then we're going to beat Seton Hall 22, Butler 23, Creighton 24, Marquette. I think we're going to go 25-2. I think we're going to go undefeated in the Big East. I think we're going to lose one early game against Notre Dame on the road, and then one game at South Carolina on the road. I could be wrong. They could be 25-2, and they could lose maybe the game against Tennessee, maybe not against Notre Dame. Maybe they lose at home to USC. I don't think they're going to lose at home this year, but I guess I could be wrong, right? Like we said, predictions sure to go wrong. But I think they're going to go 25-2. They're going to get a 1 seed, and I don't know about the new quad system and how that's going to affect where they go from a region perspective. But this UConn team is going to be really good. And I think if we talk here in the next minute or two about roster combinations, I think that's going to be the interesting part, is watch the first 5 or 6 games this year and see what Geno does without his players that are back from injury, AZ Morgan, Caroline, and not being able to utilize some of those veterans who are coming back from injuries, and how he rotates Caitlin Chen, how he rotates Sarah Strong, how he rotates Allie, and how he rotates Morgan. I'm curious about that. Also, how much on the ball Paige is versus KK or even Ashlyn or even Caitlin. So there's a lot of options that Geno didn't have last year. I think that's the beauty of this. And I think that's what the first 10 games of the season are going to look like. And I know that the preseason is for this. Obviously, coaches want to get everything buttoned up so they're not losing really any games, especially with the Big East, as we talked about, being down, where they're probably going to get 1 or 2 bids. It's hard to get a 1 seed in a 2-bid league, but with UConn's reputation and the fact that they're playing a lot of out of conference and some really good P3, P4 teams, I don't see that being an issue. So UConn still will get that 1 seed and lose a couple games this year, but I think they're going to be 25-2 going into the tournament. And that's about it, guys. When we come back tomorrow, let's talk through roster combinations, maybe some starting lineup predictions. I'm really excited about this UConn women's basketball season to start. November 7th is rapidly approaching. So this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and to remember, it's not just about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal at Locked On, and that should be the goal of the Huskies every day. And I know it's Geno's goal because that's his quote. So, as always, go Huskies.